Chapter 12. Universal Fighting Challenge. We will open this chapter with Shigo and Earon meeting in Earon's private quarters. The time is the night of the original 8's first day allowed in the Andiron Universe. 2 days remain. The preliminary fight card is complete, informed Earon. Earon passes the fight card over to Shigo. Shigo reads the fight card aloud to review. Geishi vs. Gabriel, Euro vs. Anna, Jing vs. Tanya, and Q and Dan vs. Chris and Duran. Shigo read from the card. So? Asked Earon. A tag team fight, you are challenging them. I like it, Shigo answered. Q requested that he and Dan fight together. He had a good argument, so I agreed, revealed Earon. I have no problem with that, so you are firm on Daniel and Angela not fighting here? Shigo responded. Those two will be where they belong, spectating, boomed Earon. Chris will need one more test after his fight. It has been a while since I have tested my darkness abilities in a real fight, Shigo hinted as he walks to the door. Very well, do as you see fit, we will meet again in the morning, replied Earon. Shigo exits Earon's private quarters. The next morning the original 8 have breakfast served to them in their meeting room. They are discussing yesterday's events. That was a hard-fought battle, Brandy, complimented Angela. Switchfire was good, but she was all about the fire tricks, Daniel continued. I was in a tough position. Her elemental skills are a step above mine. There was no point in continuing the fight that way, started Brandy. Why didn't you finish her with your superior technique? Questioned Tanya. I knocked Switchfire out because I knew that she would not concede, Brandy revealed. Brandy stands up. I would like to ask you all to not get anyone's blood on your hands, requested Brandy. They are all human, so that is a reasonable request, Chris said calmly. The others excluding Gabriel agree with Brandy. Your words are wise, but I cannot promise anything, declared Gabriel. If you become too injured during a fight, just concede. We don't need any of us fighting to the death, Tanya lectured. But remember, do not hold back. If you think that you have something that can win the fight, use it, Anna added. Gabriel looked at Daniel and Angela. Don't forget you two are spectating here. Do not do anything that will get you involved in this, boomed Gabriel. Daniel and Angela nodded. I hope that you are all ready. We should head out now, Duran said as he started walking toward the exit of the meeting room. The others follow. The original 8 travel to the arena. Once again, the Elemental Masters are already there waiting for them. A huge crowd of inhabitants of the island are also there, still buzzing from what they saw the previous day. Shigo steps into the center of the fighting ring. We have a full fight card today, so we will start now. The first fight will be Geishi vs. Gabriel, announced Shigo. Gabriel jogs up the steps and into the fighting ring. Geishi's blue aura shines as he creates a wave of water that he rides into the fighting ring. Fight, shouted Shigo as he exited the fighting ring. Gabriel violently charges his static aura. I don't have anything against you, so I will give you the chance to concede now, started Gabriel. Geishi laughs. You shouldn't be so confident, you don't know anything about me, Geishi replied. You are right, but I don't see an elemental master of electricity. There is only one electricity master and you are looking at him, so the unknown is me, said Gabriel confidently. The crowd voices their surprise as they chatter amongst themselves. The two engage in a heated stare down as their auras lit up the arena. Make the first move, yelled Gabriel. Geishi starts off with an attempt to crash into Gabriel by rushing toward him. When in range, Geishi throws a right hook at Gabriel. Gabriel catches Geishi's fist and shocks him with his electric grip. He quickly follows with the Urazuki, a close short punch with an inverted fist similar to an uppercut. This staggers Geishi back a couple of steps. You broke my nose, shouted Geishi. Gabriel smirked. A lot more than that will happen if you don't concede, Gabriel threatened. Geishi's blue aura started to shine. You are going to pay for that, yelled Geishi. Geishi raises his arms as his aura grows in size. After gathering maximum water energy, his hands now have a bluish glow. Geishi motions his hands forward and a huge tidal wave of water is released from his hands. This is Geishi's superior technique, Water Blast. The blast is thrown in Gabriel's direction. Gabriel's now electric aura absorbs the blast. That's it? Gabriel said as his aura started to crackle and pop. Geishi once again rushes toward Gabriel. He throws an overhand right, in hopes of scoring a knockout. Gabriel dodges this and counters with a Haizajiri knee strike to Geishi's body. Gabriel follows with the Empiuchi elbow strike, knocking Geishi to the ground. Gabriel begins to jump in place. "I'm just getting warmed up," said an extremely confident Gabriel. Geishi stands up. "I have never used this against an opponent, but you are a cocky one, time to put you in your place," Geishi boomed. Geishi's blue aura started to pulsate. As he gets into his fighting stance, his aura fuses with his body. Geishi's entire body glows blue. As the glow pulses and dissipates, Geishi is transformed into a humanoid sea monster. This is Geishi's second superior technique, standard transformation. Gabriel laughed. "That was cool, but I still think that you should concede," advised Gabriel. "You." Geishi started. Gabriel kicks Geishi in the groin with a kinjari, dropping him to the ground, untransforming him. Gabriel helps him up. "Last chance, concede before I have to take this any further," suggested Gabriel. Geishi spits at Gabriel. "I will never concede to you," Geishi shot back. Shigo re-enters the fighting ring. "Gabriel, do you wish to concede?" inquired Shigo. "I don't even know why you asked, old man," responded Gabriel. "Both fighters have refused to concede, this fight will now be to the death," Shigo declared. Shigo started to exit the fighting ring. "Wait, I want you to see this," Gabriel shouted at Shigo. Shigo remains in the fighting ring. Gabriel charges his aura. More electricity surrounds him. His aura violently crackles and pops. Gabriel places his index and middle fingers against his forehead. All of the electricity surrounding Gabriel flowed to his fingers. Gabriel released a gold-colored energy blast with electricity surrounding it in a drilling motion. This is Gabriel's superior technique, Electric Driller. The blast drills through Geishi's body, killing him on impact. A lightning show is seen in the arena as the blast dissolved. The cheers of the crowd become deafening as the island servants carry Geishi's body out of the arena. Winner of the second fight, Gabriel of the Normal Universe, announced Shigo as he raised Gabriel's arm in victory. Gabriel walks back to the rest of the original 8. Gabriel looked at Brandy. "Sorry, but I had no choice," apologized Gabriel. "You did what you had to do, I understand," Brandy reassured. "Shotokan karate, I knew that you would copy me," remarked Chris. "You may master your element, but you will not surpass me if we use the same physical technique," Gabriel shot back. Shigo walked over to the original 8. "Gabriel, you must enter the medical tent before we start the next fight," ordered Shigo. Gabriel walks to the medical tent. "Once Gabriel exits the medical tent, we will resume the fight card," Shigo informed. Gabriel exits the medical tent and rejoined the original 8. "You killed that guy," said Tanya as she looked at Gabriel. "I suggest that all of the rest of you do the same if those circumstances arise," Gabriel said as he sat next to Tanya. "The next fight will be Euro versus Anna," announced Shigo. Both Anna and Euro use their abilities to float into the fighting ring. Euro and Anna stand face to face. "One of your teammates just died, do you even care?" asked Anna. "Geishi made his choice, and I am more aware of if I can win a fight or not. Trust me, I will not make the same mistake," Euro responded. Both fighters use their wind abilities to do a test of strength. The strength of the two's wind gusts are evenly matched. "Believe it or not, the strength of your wind abilities don't surprise me," remarked Euro. "You didn't seem to think so when you were taunting me," Anna shot back. "That was all in good fun, but believe me, I do take you seriously as an opponent," Euro said as he stood face to face with Anna. "What are you getting at?" questioned Anna. "There is still a lot that you and your people don't know," Euro started. Anna stood there listening. Natives of the Andiron Universe do not take using elemental abilities seriously because they see it every day. That's why the masters that participated so far took their opponents lightly, lectured Euro. "So what makes us so different?" Anna asked. "Two things. Natives of the normal universe can learn elemental abilities much faster than their counterparts, Not only that, natives of the normal universe are more naturally inclined to take training seriously and use their abilities more responsibly, which makes us prime recruits for participation in the universal struggle, informed Eero. Enough of the mind games, I know what you are trying to do. This isn't about just abilities for you, Anna said as she got into her fighting stance. Anna throws a straight punch at Eero. Eero counters with a hip throw and attempts to lock Anna's arm. Anna's aura shines. Anna shoots a sharp gust of wind that cuts Eero's face, covering off. Eero smirks. Anna uses her wind abilities to get up. She performs a spin kick with her wind abilities, knocking Eero back. Anna continues her attack by throwing a front kick to Eero's body. He eats it and counters with a roundhouse kick to Anna's hip. Eero's aura pulses. He uses his wind abilities to perform a reverse twist punch. With the force of the wind, he knocks Anna back a couple of steps. Eero advances in order to follow up. Anna once again uses her wind energy to perform a back kick to Eero's midsection. This sends Eero back a couple steps. It seems the two of us are equal in the areas of elemental and physical techniques, Eero said as he favored his ribs. Seems that way, responded Anna as she wiped blood from her lip. There is only one way to settle this, our superior technique, Eero revealed. Both fighters get into their fighting stances. You are about to feel the true power of Kaze Ninjutsu, yelled Eero. Eero charges his sky blue aura. Eero starts to rapidly twirl his finger as a windstorm starts in the arena. Thunder and lightning flashes inside of the fighting ring. Eero's entire body glows sky blue like his aura does. The windstorm intensifies. Eero creates a massive hurricane that gets bigger as it moves towards Anna. This is Eero's superior technique, Kaze Hurricane. Eero laughs. I am about to send you through the roof of this arena, yelled Eero. The hurricane continues to move closer to Anna. Anna's aura shines. She uses her wind abilities to float high in the air. I have to find the eye of that hurricane quick, Anna thought to herself. Anna flies into the hurricane. No way, she's out of her mind, shouted Eero. Inside of the hurricane. Found it, Anna exclaimed. She spots the center of the storm. Lightning and thunder surrounds Anna. Time to blow this thing, yelled Anna. Anna gathers energy with her aura. She gathers the wind in the area, making it stop. Once enough energy is gathered, Anna releases a wind blast that fires in all directions. This is Anna's superior technique, blowout. Anna releases the wind energy in a massive blast directed at the eye of the hurricane. The blast rocks the arena and the fighting ring. Eero was caught in the blast. Eero is sent crashing into the barrier of the fighting ring. When the dust settles, he is visibly injured, holding his arm. Anna slowly floats back to the ground. I concede this fight, shouted Eero. Shigo enters the fighting ring. The winner of the third fight, Anna of the normal universe, Shigo announced as he raised Anna's arm in victory. The island servants help Eero to one of the medical tents. Anna walks back to the rest of the original 8. That was amazing, you faced an experienced opponent and you didn't panic, Chris said to Anna. Anna falls into Chris's arms, exhausted. She must have used all of her energy executing that attack, said Brandy softly. Shigo motions for more of the island servants. The island servants help Anna to the other medical tent. As you all have seen, I have activated the barrier around the fighting ring. As the fights intensify, I want to keep the action in the fighting ring and prevent any injury to those outside of the fighting ring, but it will only be activated for certain fights, informed Shigo. The next fight will be a clash of metal abilities, Jing vs Tanya. We will now take a short break, Shigo announced. Anna exits the medical tent. Shortly after her, Eero emerges from the medical tent with a sling on his left arm. Jing enters the fighting ring. She stands in the center with her arms crossed. Gabriel looks at Tanya. You better be prepared to kill because the woman you are about to fight will do so if she has to, Gabriel warned. Tanya nodded at Gabriel, she then hugged Daniel and Angela. Tanya enters the fighting ring. Jing smiled. I won't take it easy on you like Anna did in the Drazel universe. I will know if you can continue the fight or not, Jing said as she stood in front of Tanya. I have my reasons, but I am no longer bound by those reasons, and I am all in on this fight, shot Tanya. Both Tanya and Jing's auras shine metallic bright. Tanya's aura begins to flicker and changes from silver to pink. Jing throws a front kick at Tanya to create a fighting distance. Tanya is knocked back slightly, but she is still in punching range. Tanya throws a front lunge punch to Jing's ribs. Tanya attempts to gain the advantage by taking Jing down. Jing recognizes this and counters by timing Tanya, changing levels, and connects with an elbow strike. Tanya falls to the ground. Jing's metallic aura shines. Jing forms two metal fans in her hands and strikes down at Tanya. Tanya's aura shines as her arms turn into pink metal. She performs an Ajuk rising block, knocking Jing's metal fans out of her hands. Jing smiled. "You are better than I expected," said Jing as she stared at Tanya. "Likewise, you are so beautiful, I didn't think that you could actually fight," Tanya responded. The fighters stand in the middle of the fighting ring. "Do you know what the difference between me and you is?" questioned Jing. "Enlighten me," Tanya shot back. "In the normal universe you believe in gods that have never been proven to be real. Natives of the Andiron Universe believe in their abilities that they live their entire lives with, therefore, we are the real gods to believe in," lectured Jing. "So you think you are a god?" Tanya responded. "In your context, no, but I am about to show you that I am far from an everyday human being," boomed Jing. Jing charges her aura. The light from her metallic aura is almost blinding. The metallic light flashes violently. As the light dims, Jing stands with her entire body turned into metal except for her hair. This is Jing's superior technique, hard body. Outside of the fighting ring. "Look at that," started Duran. Brandy frowned. "Now is not the time," Brandy interrupted sharply. Back in the fighting ring. Jing once again forms metallic fans in her hands, and attempts to strike Tanya, but she easily dodges it. "Use your speed, Tanya, all of that metal has to be weighing her down," Gabriel yelled. Jing continues to attempt attacking with her metallic fans. Tanya easily dodges Jing's attacks. Her speed has lowered significantly. "She must think that she is going to tire me out. I have to go on the offensive before that happens," thought Tanya. "You can do this, Tanya," Daniel shouted. "This is what we trained for, show her what you are made of," added Angela. As Tanya charges her aura, Jing throws both metallic fans in Tanya's direction. Tanya forms a metal shield in her hand and blocks with it. The fans make contact with Tanya's shield. After some sparks fly, the fans fall uselessly to the ground. The fans quickly fly back to Jing and are absorbed into her body. Tanya runs towards Jing with her pink aura shining. She jumps into the air and as her foot turns into metal, Tanya performs a roundhouse kick with rapid hip rotation power, striking Jing as sparks fly in the fighting ring. Jing is unaffected. Tanya forms a sword in her hands and strikes Jing. Sparks again fly in the fighting ring. The sword that Tanya formed is destroyed. "You can't penetrate my metal armor, concede now, and I will let you leave this fighting ring alive," boomed Jing. Shigo enters the fighting ring. "Tanya, do you concede your participation in this fight?" Shigo inquired. Tanya looked at Shigo. "I'm not going to quit a fight that I am not losing," answered Tanya. "You did in the Drazel universe, why not now?" Jing said sarcastically. "Enough, Jing, do you concede?" asked Shigo. "I will never concede to a novice like her, I am a master," Jing said in a disgusted tone. "Very well, this fight will be to the death," announced Shigo as he exited the fighting ring. "Let's settle this," Tanya said as she got into her fighting stance. "I'll tell you what, you will not penetrate this armor, but I will let you try with one technique. If you fail, I will kill you," said Jing in a serious tone. "Fine, I will use my superior technique," Tanya responded. Jing laughed. "You had your chance to walk away from this, I won't just lay down and die for you," shouted Tanya. Tanya's pink aura shines. Tanya fuses her aura with her physical body, her body glows and pulses frequently. The glowing flows to Tanya's right hand. As the glow fades, Tanya's hand turns to solid pink metal. Tanya strikes with an open palm. This is Tanya's superior technique, metal palm strike. Tanya strikes Jing's metal body as sparks fly and smoke fills the fighting ring. The smoke clears, Jing and Tanya are still standing in the fighting ring. Jing laughed. I told you, started Jing. Jing moans and falls face first into the ground unresponsive. A doctor enters the fighting ring and pronounces Jing dead. The winner of the fourth fight, Tanya of the normal universe, Shigo announced after slightly hesitating. The crowd cheers loudly once again. Immediately after this, Tanya falls to the ground. The doctor examines her. Daniel and Angela call out to Tanya. She used all of her physical and elemental energy in that attack. Let's take her to the medical tent, said the doctor. The two help Tanya to the medical tent. The island servants carry Jing's body out of the arena. Earon, looking visibly emotional, is escorted to a suite in the spectators' booth. The final fight on our preliminary card will be Q and Dan versus Chris and Earon, Shigo informed. As he announces that the forthcoming fight will be a tag team battle, Tanya with Daniel and Angela exit the medical tent. Lord Earon agreed to make this a tag team fight under the condition that he could enforce some unique rules, revealed Shigo. Shigo motioned toward the big screen that displayed the rules as follows. One fighter from each team is allowed in the fighting ring. The two remaining fighters are restricted from entering the fighting ring by a tag barrier. Tags are made by tapping or making any physical contact with the tag barrier. It will then release the fighter's partner. The tagging team or teams may double team for 10 seconds. After the 10-second period, the illegal fighter or fighters are teleported back into the tag barrier. Every 3 minutes the tag barrier will drop, allowing all 4 fighters to be in the fighting ring at the same time. 3-minute warning periods. Durations are random. Those rules are non-negotiable for both teams, informed Shigo. The fight-ending sequences will now be shown, Shigo said as he once again motioned to the big screen. The terms for the fight to end read as follows. The fight may end if one or both fighters inside of the fighting ring concede. It may also end if the fighter in the tag barrier concedes for their partner, aka throwing in the towel. This fight will under no circumstances be to the death. Fighters may use their discretion in relation to use of force, finished Shigo. Earon allows a short break to allow both teams to put together a strategy before stepping into the fighting ring. The original 8 are once again in a huddle. We have seen those two fight before, so we aren't completely blind on this, Chris remarked. They worked really well as a team. In order to win we will have to mirror that, added Earon. What you two saw in our universe and fights with elemental abilities are very different, Gabriel reminded. I sense that they are both extremely skilled and dedicated to the fight. Be careful, and come back to me, said Anna as she hugged Chris. Don't forget to use your Kenpo, these two are fighters, just using elemental abilities won't get you through this fight, Brandy advised. She hugs Earon. Brandy also hugs Chris as Anna hugs Earon. Earon enters the fighting ring. As Chris enters, Tanya and Gabriel wish them luck. Hugh and Dan enter the fighting ring. Fighters, choose who will start the fight, prompted Shigo. Dan steps forward. I will start this fight for my team, Dan declared. Hugh walks into the tag barrier. He starts to meditate as the barrier activates. I will represent my team first, announced Earon. Chris walks into the tag barrier as it activates. Dan walks up to Earon, casually drinking a beer. The fight that you and your partner saw will be nothing like the one that you are about to be a part of, Dan said as he burped. You have my attention, replied Earon. Myself and my partner are the only two people alive in any universe that can use the Kokoro style of fighting, Dan started. Congratulations, responded Earon sarcastically. We do not use the Kokoro style in our professional fights, so you saw us fight but you saw just a small taste of what we are capable of, continued Dan. Earon gets into his fighting stance as his green aura shines bright throughout the arena. I will admit that when I saw you two at your graduation, I didn't believe that you would actually show up ready to fight, Dan remarked. Dan chugs another beer. Stop stalling so you can continue to drink and fight, ordered Shigo. As Dan attempts to chug another beer, Shigo shoots a dark flame at Dan and the beer bottle is dissipated. Fight, shouted Shigo as he exits the fighting ring. Earon charges his bright green aura. Dan's dark brown aura shines as he shoots a small burst of spirit energy at Earon. This knocks him back a few feet away. Earon regains his balance. What the hell was that? questioned Duran. That was the Kokoro burst aided by my spirit energy, Dan responded. I won't let you hit me with that again, said Duran as he got back into his fighting stance. Dan's aura flashes. He performs his dashing punch technique, a straight punch aided by the force of spirit energy. After images of Dan appear as his body moves toward Duran and he strikes Duran in the face. Use your Kenpo, shouted Brandy. Duran counters with the thrusting salute. A front straight right kick that strikes Dan in the ribs. Both fighters take a step back. At that moment a buzzer sounds as the 3-minute warning period begins. The barriers restricting Chris and Q deactivate. Chris attempts to help Duran, but Dan and Q use their spirit energy to dash across the fighting ring to meet Chris and halt his advance. Chris's purple aura flashes as he uses his darkness flash technique. He disappears in a purple cloud of smoke. Chris reappears next to Duran. They both get into their fighting stances as the arena glows purple and green. Q's dark green aura shines as she shoots a large burst of spirit energy similar to Dan's Kokoro burst at Chris. This knocks Chris all the way back towards his team's tag barrier. Q and Dan once again spirit dash at Chris. Thereafter images trailing them. As the two attempt to double team Chris, both Q and Chris are teleported back into their team's tag barrier. So Q can use that technique too. It looked like it was more impactful, Duran said as he looked at Dan. Dan turned around to look at Duran. Now it's my turn, declared Duran. Duran's aura grows in size. Rocks fly into the arena. Duran's green aura shined as he formed a floating rock shield around his body. This is Duran's elemental technique, armor of rock. Dan counters with the Kokoro burst. Duran releases the rocks surrounding him and it overpowers Dan's Kokoro burst. The rocks strike Dan, knocking him to the ground. Duran and Dan seem to be evenly matched, Anna pointed out. They are, but Q and Dan may be trying to isolate Chris because they see Duran as more of a threat. They should be alert to that if they want to win this fight, added Gabriel. It's about time that we let our partners get a piece of the action, Dan suggested. Duran agrees. Both fighters walk up to their team's tag barrier and tap it. Chris and Q are tagged into the fighting ring. Dan's spirit dashes to Duran, catching him off guard with his wild tackle technique, taking him to the ground. Separating Chris and Duran again. Q's spirit dashes towards Chris. Before Chris can get into his fighting stance, Q is already in front of him and strikes with the Kokoro punch, a straight punch enhanced by the force of spirit energy. The strike momentarily stuns Chris. Dan, spirit dashes to Chris. As Duran and Dan are teleported to their team's tag barrier. Q is struck by a large boulder before he could follow up on his advantage. Chris recovers and counters with the Yamazuki Mountain Punch, a wide double-fisted strike, knocking Q backward. Chris gets into his fighting stance. Outside of the fighting ring, Duran threw that boulder right before the double team period was over, motioned Brandy. He created some space, but Chris needs to capitalize, added Anna. Let's see how these two match up, Gabriel said as he focused on the fighting ring. Back inside the fighting ring. Initially, I wanted to face you one-on-one, but when I found out that you and Duran are best friends, we both wanted to see if you two could work as a team, informed Q. That doesn't bother me, Chris replied. Q's dark green aura shines. Myself and Dan will take this seriously, and although no one will be killed, this will be a real fight, declared Q. Q uses a charged version of the Kokoro burst. Chris is ready for this and uses a charged version of dark energy to counter. Both energy bursts meet in the middle of the fighting ring. The force sends Chris and Q flying backward. Both fighters quickly get back to their feet. Q spirit dashes to the middle of the fighting ring. Chris uses the darkness flash technique to reappear in the middle of the fighting ring. Chris throws a straight punch at Q that just misses the mark. Q's body glows dark green as he counters with a front kick aided by spirit energy, knocking Chris back a few feet. Q rushes toward Chris to follow up. Chris counters with the Tobi Heiza Jerry, a jumping knee and kick combination that connects with Q's ribs. In the Elemental Masters spectators area. You look like you are impressed, Shigo pointed out Switchfire. Chris's ability to use his dark energy to mask the intent of his techniques is remarkable, Shigo responded. The buzzer sounds once again as the 3-minute warning period begins. Before Duran could do anything, Q and Dan have already spirit dashed to Chris. Dan's dark brown aura shines as he hits Chris with the Kokoro kick using his spirit energy. The force of the kick knocks Chris further away from Duran's position. With Chris down, Q's aura glows as his spirit energy carries him high into the air. While in the air, Q forms a diamond gauntlet on his right hand. And he comes crashing down towards Chris. Before Q can make contact with Chris, a shield of rocks surround Chris. Q makes contact with the rock shield. The shield is destroyed, but the force of both fighters' earth energy sends Q crashing into Dan. Watch out, when they are both in the fighting ring, they are intentionally focusing their attacks on Chris, shouted Tanya. Dan helps Q to his feet. You two are crafty, but annoying, Dan said in an angry tone. There is no reason to prolong this, we are quite evenly matched, added Q. I agree, Duran responded as he helped Chris to his feet. These people came here to see a show, let's give them one, suggested Dan. I figured that you would say that, bring it on, Chris shot back. It's settled, a test of skills. If neither team can win with their superior technique, we will all concede at the same time, making this fight a draw, Q said as he looked towards Shigo. Chris and Duran looked at each other and nodded. Shigo motioned to the suite that Earon is watching the action from. A dark green and brown glow emanated from Earon's suite. Shigo nodded. Your terms are valid, proceed with the conclusion of this fight, announced Shigo. Shigo enters the fighting ring. All fighters charge your auras, ordered Shigo. Dan charges his dark brown aura. Q charges his dark green aura. Chris and Duran get into their fighting stances. Chris charges his purple aura. Duran charges his green aura. Why don't you two go first? I want to see what you so-called masters are capable of, suggested Duran. What are you up to? Chris questioned. I have a plan, trust me, assured Duran. Q and Dan get into their fighting stances as their bodies glow the respective color of their auras. Both Q and Dan enter a short meditation. Dan extends his arms into the air. Wooden objects orbit around his body. His dark brown aura shines its brightest. His aura fuses with his hands as the wooden objects surrounding him become wooden weapons. With his hands glowing dark brown and flowing with wood energy, he awaits Q. As Q's aura grew in size, his meditation has hit its peak. He too extends his arms into the air. The arena glows dark green. His dark green aura fuses with his hands. Q fires a dark green-colored earth energy blast aided by his spirit energy. Dan also fires a wood energy blast aided by flying wooden weapons. These are Dan and Q's superior techniques, Kokoro Wave and Wood Blast. The two blasts merge in the center and moves toward Chris's position. Duran and Chris nod at each other. Duran's body glows a bright green. As the glow pulsates, one after the other 6 copies of Duran walk out of Duran's glowing body and surround Q and Dan. This is Duran's earth energy technique, Chakra Clone. Stay focused, Dan, that technique is just smoke and mirrors, ordered Q. Duran's clone closest to Dan moves to attack him. This momentarily distracts Dan just as the combined energy blast is about to hit Chris. Now! Duran yelled. Duran is transported to the position of one of his chakra clones. This clone just so happened to be behind Q. Both Q and Dan release their control of the combined energy blasts. One by one, Duran's chakra clones walk back into his physical body. A blinding green light fills the arena. Duran gathers energy. The ground begins to shake. Duran's arms extend forward, releasing a shining green energy blast with the combined energy of his clones. This is Duran's superior technique, Mana Blast. The blast makes contact with Q, sending him flying out of the fighting ring. Chris uses his darkness flash to appear in front of a surprised Dan. A purple flame surrounds Chris's right fist. He quickly throws a punch. This is Chris's superior technique, Dark Fist. The punch makes contact with Dan. Dan falls to the ground unconscious. Q crawls back into the fighting ring. Our word is our bond, I concede this fight for my team, Q said as he slowly stood up. The winners of our feature preliminary fight, the team of Chris and Earon of the normal universe, announced Shigo. Chris sits down in the middle of the fighting ring. We did it, Earon said as he helped Chris to his feet. Anna, Brandy, and Tanya enter the fighting ring to congratulate Chris and Earon. That was awesome, said Anna as she hugged Chris. That was pretty clever, Earon, quick thinking, Brandy added. You two showed a lot of guts out here, I can't help but admire that, said Tanya as she looked at Chris. The island servants help Q and Dan to the medical tent. Following being congratulated by their peers, Chris and Earon are escorted to a medical tent. We will take a small break before the announcement of which one of you will fight in the main event tomorrow, informed Shigo. Shigo makes his way to Earon's suite. I can't choose which one of them that I want to fight yet, Earon said as he sat down in his seat. That is good, because I plan to test Chris in the fighting ring before we leave this arena today, revealed Shigo. Perfect, this will give me more time to decide. I think that Chris got off easy in that last fight, do as you please, Earon replied. I made a modification to the fighting ring's barrier, Shigo continued. Shigo hands Earon a control device. Exactly what kind of modification did you make? Questioned Earon. Shigo smiled. You will see once you activate the barrier, but please do not deactivate it until I request that you do, Shigo answered. I will do as you say, but this is not an official part of the fight card, that means the terms of the previous fights do not apply here, said Earon. Agreed, Shigo responded. I will inform you of my decision when you are finished, said Earon as he sat down. Shigo exits Earon's suite. Shigo returns to the fighting ring. Chris, can you step into the fighting ring please? Shigo suggested. Chris enters the fighting ring. Activate the barrier, ordered Shigo. The area of the fighting ring becomes pitch dark as the barrier surrounds the ring. It's pitch black in here, Chris said as his aura starts to glow. Did the doctor give you the remedy? Inquired Shigo. Yes, and I feel like new. I don't feel like I was in a fight just minutes ago, Chris responded. Shigo reacts by punching Chris with a straight right, knocking him down. Chris stands up. His purple aura glows as he focuses his dark energy. Chris's eyes turn completely white, enabling him to see in the dark. That one was free, you won't get any more like that, Chris said as he got into his fighting stance. I made a modification to the fighting ring's barrier. Because of that, this is not an official fight on the card, so this fight will not end unless I say it does, revealed Shigo. Outside of the barrier. I can't see what's going on in there, Anna said in a serious tone. Can't hear anything either, added Brandy. I don't like this, Anna said as she turned away from the fighting ring. He will be okay, we all saw what he can do, we have to believe in him, assured Brandy. The remaining members of the original 8 also point out that they cannot see or hear what is going on in the fighting ring. Hey! What the hell is going on here? We didn't sign up for whatever this is. Earon shouts towards Earon's suite. In Earon's suite. Earon calls a female island servant over as he flirts with her. My dear, look into the fighting ring and tell me what you see, instructed Earon. Forgive me, Lord Earon, I cannot see anything in there, the female island servant replied. Earon sits her in his lap. I will teach you how to see and hear things that others cannot see and hear. By the end of this fight you will be able to see and hear through that barrier, Earon said as he looked at the female island servant. Earon smiles. Shigo is a genius, he created a barrier that only users of the darkness element can hear and see through. Let us see how this unfolds, finished Earon. Back in the fighting ring. The first thing that I will say is, do not repeat anything that I tell you in this fighting ring, Shigo started in a serious tone. That's fine, responded Chris. I knew your father, and I once stood in the position that you are in as a defender of the Andiron Universe, Shigo continued. My father went missing 10 years ago and was presumed dead. He has nothing to do with what is going on now, replied Chris. Tim Wilson has everything to do with this. Why do you think Darren and Iria chose you to defend the Andiron Universe? Shigo boomed. Did you have anything to do with his disappearance? Questioned Chris. Shigo laughs. Tim and I were friends, I would never harm him, Shigo shot back. Where is he? Asked Chris. Shigo shook his head. Unfortunately for you, he instructed me years ago that if I ever met you in person to never tell you where he is, Shigo responded. Is he alive? Inquired Chris. If he is, he will come to you when he is ready, Shigo answered. Let's get this fight going and forget about my father, boomed Chris. Shigo's aura shines. A sword forms in his hand. This is the dark sword, a weapon passed to the universe's top darkness fighter, informed Shigo. How did you acquire that sword? Chris questioned. With a dark flame surrounding the sword, Shigo performs his double slash technique, 2 consecutive slashes of the dark sword enhanced by dark energy. Chris avoids both slashes and counters with his dark burst technique. This knocks Shigo backward. Chris moves to follow up on his attack. As he does, an after image of Shigo appears. Chris shoots an overhand right, striking mere smoke. Shigo attacks with the Yamazuki Mountain Punch, a wide double-fisted strike as Chris turns around. Chris is nearly knocked off of his feet. That was my technique, Chris said as he regained his balance. Shigo laughs. Tim taught me that technique years ago, revealed Shigo. He was a fighter? Chris inquired. I thought that you didn't want to talk about your father, responded Shigo. In Earon's suite. Can you hear Chris and Shigo? Earon asks the female island servant. A dark purple aura flickers around the female island servant. I can hear them, but why is Tim Wilson so important? Replied the female island servant. Tim is one of the former defenders of the Andiron Universe, Earon informed. I would like to know more, Lord Earon, said the female island servant softly. You will only know what you hear in the fighting ring. I will tell you no more, Earon replied in a serious tone. Back in the fighting ring. It is time for us to showcase our techniques so we can end this and move on, suggested Shigo. Shigo charges his black aura. He releases a large burst of dark elemental energy. This sends Chris flying backward towards the fighting ring's barrier. The entire fighting ring glows purple. Chris uses his darkness flash technique and he reappears in front of Shigo. Your father also taught me the dark burst technique, Shigo informed. The fighting ring glows a charcoal black. Shigo uses the darkness flash technique and reappears to the left of Chris. He taught me many of his techniques that you already know, and some that you haven't discovered yet, Shigo trumpeted. Shigo once again uses the darkness flash technique and reappears to the right of Chris. You are no challenge to me yet, I know all of your techniques, and while your abilities are impressive, the fact remains that you are greatly inexperienced, Shigo lectured. I had a feeling that you didn't bring me in here to fight, responded Chris sarcastically. Shigo reappears in front of Chris. I brought you into the fighting ring to educate you, boomed Shigo. I'm listening, Chris shot back. Myself and your father once fought side by side. Tim Wilson was the previous defender of the Andiron Universe, and he saved the universes a decade ago, started Shigo. That was around the time that he disappeared. Tell me what you know, Shigo, Chris demanded. Shigo shook his head. I refuse, but if you want to be better than your father, you will have to fight to kill. You will never survive in the universal struggle if you are not willing to kill to save the universes, continued Shigo. Was my father a killer? Chris inquired. You will have to ask him that, answered Shigo. So he is alive? Chris anticipated. Shigo once again refuses to answer. If Earon doesn't kill you first, you have yet to face the real threat to the universes. That threat currently resides in the normal universe, revealed Shigo. That can't be true, elemental abilities don't exist there. Everyone here knows that, Chris responded. Who said anything about elemental abilities? Just remember the name Mark Oxford, hinted Shigo. I will, but one day you will have to tell me more about my father willingly or unwillingly, Chris declared. We are done here, lower the barrier, ordered Shigo. The barrier lowers as sight into the fighting ring is possible again. Shigo exits the fighting ring as the rest of the original 8 spill into the fighting ring. He immediately makes his way to Earon's suite. The suite glows dark purple. Earon is making out with the female island servant. Which one of them do you want to fight in the main event? Shigo inquired. I will face Chris in the main event, confirmed Earon. Good choice, choosing Gabriel would not suit our overall plan, Shigo responded. Gabriel's abilities are an unknown. Darren and Iria giving him those abilities opposed to traditional elemental abilities gives him an advantage, added Earon. Shigo looks at the female island servant. Why is she still present, hearing Elemental Master business? Shigo questioned. I am training her. She heard everything in the fighting ring just now, so this one already knows enough, answered Earon. It's time for me to go out to the fighting ring and announce the main event and end today's events, if you will allow it, Lord Earon, Shigo suggested. I will allow it, but answer this question, why didn't you fight Chris seriously, inquired Earon. Chris is not my destined opponent, he is destined to face you, Shigo answered. Begin preparation for tonight's funeral service for the fallen Geishi and Jing, Earon orders the female island servant. The female island servant exits the room. Shigo exits Earon's suite and returns to the fighting ring. The original 8 are all in the fighting ring. I'm fine guys, Chris assured the others. The main event will be Chris versus Earon. Today's fights have concluded, the main event will take place tomorrow, announced Shigo. The crowd leaves, and so does the remaining Elemental Masters and Earon. The time is now the night of the original 8's second day allowed in the Andiron Universe. 1 day remains. The original 8 are having dinner in their meeting room. So what happened when you were in the fighting ring with Shigo? Questioned Anna. We could not see or hear anything that was going on in there, Tanya added. Before Chris could answer, Iria appears in front of him. Congratulations on your victory in those fights earlier, greeted Iria. Tanya frowned. You didn't tell us that we would have to kill anyone, Tanya said in a disgusted tone. Jing and Geishi knew the terms of the fight, their pride and overconfidence caused their deaths. That's the type of situation that all of you are in now, lectured Iria. Why did you initially choose me to defend the Andiron Universe? Chris boomed. Iria looked at Chris. You know why already, and what Shigo told you in the fighting ring does not change anything. You have another fight to prepare for, responded Iria. I will find out more about this on my own, Chris declared. Gabriel, Daniel and Angela request to know more about Earon. That's why I'm here. I figured that Chris would want to know more, but he seems to have his thoughts somewhere else right now, started Iria. I want to know about Earon as well, Chris said as he sat back in his seat. Like Shigo, Earon's early life is mostly a mystery, but we do know that he was born in the Andiron Universe, revealed Iria. Was he born with his abilities? Anna questioned. No, but that ignited his interest in science as well as the elements. At 14 years old he trained under the 7 basic elements and he began training to control his abilities and somewhat mastered them, continued Iria. How did that not end up on your radar? Daniel asked. Learning the elements is possible here, it happens every day. Shigo eventually found him and Earon demonstrates his amazing abilities. Shigo is impressed and lets Earon join him. The two soon recruit 6 others, Switchfire, Geishi, Euro, Q, Dan, and Jing to create the Elemental Masters, informed Iria. So what is their goal? They seem more concerned with showing off their abilities than actually fighting, Tanya chimed in. Their motives are always hidden for reasons unknown. We do know that they seek to end the Elemental Peace Corps and regulation of elemental abilities, finished Iria. The people of the island and the Elemental Masters are not as hostile as we believed they would be, Brandy pointed out. Why did Darren allow them to create a standalone society where they are clearly cultivating more elemental fighters? Questioned Gabriel. The Elemental Peace Corps became corrupt over time and shifted from capturing and rehabilitating rogue elementals to actually killing them. Because of that, they needed a place of refuge, Iria answered. Jing and Geishi were pretty defiant. Maybe that played a part in their shift in strategy, remarked Tanya. That is true. Over time, the elementals encountered by the EPC had become more defiant and aggressive, but that does not define all of them, Iria added. I see no problem with them wanting to value what makes their world so unique, declared Duran. I agree, but such pride has already proved to be dangerous, acknowledged Brandy. Indeed it has. Chris, try not to focus too much on the elements and focus on the fight. Earon will not toy around with you like the other masters have done so far. He has darkness elemental energy at his disposal just like you. Use your physical technique and refrain from trying any risky techniques, Iria advised. Iria disappears in a blinding light. Following the funeral service for Geishi and Jing. The Elemental Masters hold a meeting in the dining hall. Are any of you still angered by the deaths of your former colleagues? Inquired Shigo. They all acknowledge that they understand the circumstances that led to their deaths. Moving forward, you all need to be more strategic in your fights. If you can all do that, I vow that we will not lose any more of our people, Earon declared. Switchfire stands up. May I speak freely, Lord Earon? Requests Switchfire. Permission granted, speak freely, Earon replied. I thank you and Shigo for helping me learn to control my abilities, but I can no longer assist you in your efforts. Your overall objective will never happen. The normal universe's fighters will not allow it, boomed Switchfire. Shigo's black aura glows. If you leave the organization, you must leave this island tonight, Shigo announced. I accept that, responded Switchfire. The island servants escort Switchfire out of the dining hall. Earon looked at Q and Dan. Follow her and make sure that she leaves this island, ordered Earon. Q and Dan leave the dining hall. I don't mind her desire to leave, but it may be possible that the EPC could find her, Shigo added. She has been off the grid long enough. If she is vigilant, they won't find her. Switchfire will return to the island eventually, assured Earon. The night passes, and the final day of the original 8's trip to the Andiron Universe has arrived. Chris wakes up early and heads to the palace's terrace that overlooks the island. Tanya wakes up early as well and joins Chris on the terrace. Why are you up so early? Chris asked Tanya. I could hardly sleep knowing that I killed someone yesterday, answered Tanya. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have had to experience that, Chris apologized. I knew that you would be up early thinking about whatever Shigo told you, continued Tanya. What he knows changes everything for me, Chris responded. What did he say to you? Inquired Tanya. I can't tell you yet, but I will tell all when I find out more, Chris answered. Well, all of the secrets aside, I know that you are ready for the fight today, seeing how you are not just fighting for yourself anymore, said Tanya softly. We have all come this far even though we previously believed that this universe was not real, Chris replied. I agree, but there is more to this universe than what we have been told. Tell me more about your first trip to this universe. Did you notice anything out of the ordinary? Asked Tanya. While I was in alternate Menifee, I did not see anyone using elemental abilities in the open. Switchfire was the only person that I saw using an elemental ability, Chris started. That is strange, but given the mentions of the Elemental Peace Corps so far, people in the Andiron Universe not openly using their abilities is most likely a precaution, speculated Tanya. There were also many people from other countries there, but they were living in harmony with all of the other citizens. I think this version of Earth may be a global society, Chris continued. Tanya looked at Chris. Did you meet the alternate version of me? Questioned Tanya. Chris slightly hesitates. I did. Alternate Tanya looks like you, and she talks like you, Chris responded. So did you want to date her too? Joked Tanya. Alternate Tanya dislikes my alternate self just like you did, but the difference was they did not meet until I was in alternate Chris's body. They had no history with each other prior to that, Chris went on. So you sought her out? Anticipated Tanya. I intended to, but she approached me first, Chris informed. You were only there a day, so not much could have happened, remarked Tanya. Let's just say all of the stars were not aligned in the Andiron Universe, including alternate Angela and alternate Gabriel not being there. I didn't see alternate Daniel either. Your alternate appeared to be acting alone, Chris finished. The two look on as the sun rises on their last day in the Andiron Universe. I believe in you, and you will win this fight today, encouraged Tanya. Tanya hugs Chris, and the two go back inside the palace. Following breakfast, the original 8 once again return to the arena. All of the Elemental Masters are present excluding Switchfire. Shigo is training a team of island servants. He wraps things up as he sees the original 8 walk into the arena. Why are you training your servants? Questioned Gabriel. This is a must here. All of them are needed in case the EPC ever discovers this island. They won't go quietly into the night with my training, replied Shigo. Shigo presents medals to Brandy, Gabriel, Anna, Tanya, and Chris and Earon for winning the preliminary fights. It is time to start the main event of this 3-day showcase, announced Shigo. Drone cameras fly around the fighting ring. Daniel and Angela rush into the fighting ring. Why were we not allowed to fight? Daniel yelled. Earon slowly walks down the steps of the arena seating area and into the fighting ring. Tanya attempts to get into the fighting ring, but Gabriel with his static aura crackling stops her. Those two were warned multiple times, they now must face the consequences of their decision, boomed Gabriel. Shigo exits the fighting ring. The two of you are not worthy, leave the fighting ring now if you value your lives, Earon said calmly. We will not leave the fighting ring until we are given an opponent, demanded Angela. Don't do this, get out of the fighting ring now. Anna shouted to Angela. Angela gathers energy. Her aura shining bright brown. She raises her arm. And continues that motion. Angela grows 8 trees, with sharpened edges all in one line. She controls the trees by launching them forward in succession. This is Angela's superior technique, Timberline. The launched trees fly toward Earon. Earon's aura turns dark orange. Earon releases a blast of fire energy, burning the trees to a crisp. Daniel steps forward. His aura shines a very bright blue. The outside of his aura resembles the lining of a bubble. As Daniel raises his arms, water energy surrounds him. Daniel fuses his aura with his body. Daniel throws his hands forward, releasing his aura in the process and causing a tidal wave. This is Daniel's superior technique, Overwave. The tidal wave approaches Earon. Earon's aura changes to a bluish gray. Earon uses his wind energy, blowing Daniel's technique back at him. This knocks both Angela and Daniel to the ground, leaving them soaking wet. Earon walked up to Angela and kicked her, aided by his wind energy, sending her tumbling out of the fighting ring. Tanya and Gabriel run over to check on her. Daniel attempts to get up. Earon's aura changes to dark brown as his foot turns to stone. He kicks Daniel in the ribs. Earon lifts Daniel from the ground with a wind gust and releases it, slamming him to the ground. With Angela laying outside of the fighting ring and Daniel laying motionless inside of the fighting ring, Chris steps into the fighting ring. The glow of Chris's purple aura fills the arena. That's enough, your fight is with me, Chris yelled. Chris motioned to Tanya and Gabriel. Get him out of here right now, instructed Chris. Gabriel and Tanya carry Daniel out of the fighting ring. Chris and Earon stand face to face. Why did you attack Daniel and Angela knowing that they are no match for you? Chris questioned angrily. They were not invited and did not have any right to step into my fighting ring, responded Earon. Well, now you have to fight me, Chris declared. I will let you walk out of the fighting ring with your pride if you concede right now, offered Earon. After what you just did, definitely not, Chris shot back. Despite Darren and Aria's beliefs, myself and the remaining Elemental Masters are fighting for the freedom of all with elemental abilities in this universe. I will always stand on that, said Earon proudly. The crowd in attendance cheer Earon's words. That remains to be seen, Chris responds as he gets into his fighting stance. The terms of the previous one-on-one fights apply here, but this time the towel can be thrown in on the behalf of the fighter, by an ally, ending the fight, informed Shigo. The terms appear on the big screen for all to see. Fight, shouted Shigo. Chris's aura shines. The alternating colors of Earon's aura give a fancy light show to all of the spectators. The invisible barrier activates and surrounds the fighting ring. Earon's glows grayish blue as a tunnel of wind surrounds Chris. The force of the wind whips Chris around. Earon's aura turns black. Earon fires a blast of darkness energy. The impact sends Chris crashing into the fighting ring's barrier right in front of where Anna is standing. Get up, Chris, a concerned Anna shouts into the fighting ring. Shigo taught me that technique, apparently it runs in your family, taunted Earon. Earon uses his wind energy to float over to a downed Chris. When he arrives, he performs a Tetsui to hammer fist Chris. Chris suddenly counters with the Ajuk rising block. His aura glows and his arms and hands are surrounded by purple flames. The momentum of Chris's dark energy makes Earon stumble backwards. Chris capitalizes on this with the Yoko Tobi Jerry, a jumping side kick connecting with Earon's head. Chris continues his assault by using his dark burst technique, sending Earon to the ground in the center of the fighting ring. Earon stands up. His aura turns dark blue. A spear made completely of ice forms in his hand. Earon throws the ice spear at Chris. Chris's aura glows as he disappears in a purple puff of smoke. The ice spear shatters when it hits the invisible barrier. The darkness flash, I saw that coming, remarked Earon. Chris reappears in front of Earon. Earon's aura glows silver and his foot turns into metal. Earon kicks Chris in the chest, knocking the wind out of him. And dropping him down to one knee. Outside of the fighting ring. We should throw in the towel, this is looking too much like the Daniel and Angela incident, Anna considered. You know that Chris would not want you to do that, said Brandy in a serious tone. Duran looked at Anna. This is scary, but right now and in the future you will have to support Chris even if it looks bleak, Duran added. Tanya and Gabriel, who are tending to Daniel and Angela, also offer their support. Back in the fighting ring. With Chris momentarily reeling, Earon's aura changes to dark orange. Chris slowly stands up. Earon punches Chris with a flaming fist, burning his shirt away. Outside of the fighting ring. What the hell is he doing? He is playing right into Earon's hands, Gabriel pointed out. Earon has a significant advantage with his elemental technique, added Tanya. If Chris does not turn this into a real fight, Earon will easily defeat him, Gabriel says as he focuses on the fighting ring. Inside of the fighting ring. You are nowhere near the fighter that your father was, taunted Earon. So you could hear what Shigo told me yesterday. I had a feeling that you knew everything already, Chris shot back. Earon laughed. I heard everything. I found it amusing that you denied wanting to know more about your father. He was no normal man, responded Earon. Chris's aura glows and leaves his body. Chris's aura surrounds Earon and engulfs him. Chris stands up and raises his fist. His aura returns to him. The entire arena glows purple as Chris gets into his fighting stance. Thanks for the light show, Earon said sarcastically. That is one of my new darkness energy techniques, Energy Stealer. I just took half of your darkness energy, informed Chris. The crowd reacts with surprise. It's time to do what we came here to do, and that's fight. Turn this into a fight, not a technique fest, Duran shouted into the fighting ring. Anna, Brandy, Duran, Tanya, and Gabriel cheer loudly, further encouraging Chris. Back inside the fighting ring. You think that stealing some of my energy will help you? Earon said as he got into his fighting stance. Earon laughs. You are no match for me. Concede now before one of your people have to throw in the towel for you, suggested Earon. No way, this is a new fight now. The Christmas light show is over now, Earon, Chris replied. Earon's aura turned dark green. The ground in the arena starts to shake. Earon's aura fuses with his body. Earon, aided by earth elemental energy, jumps high into the air. He forms a stone gauntlet on both hands. Earon comes down at a rapid speed and crashes down towards Chris with all of his earth energy. This is Earon's superior technique, Earth Smash. When the dust settles, a massive crater is in the center of the fighting ring. The drone cameras move into the crater. Everyone spectating turn their attention to the big screen. When they are able to see, Earon is standing alone inside of the crater. It appears that Chris is not there. Come out, darkness invisibility is only temporary, yelled Earon. Chris appears in front of Earon. Earon quickly throws a straight right at Chris. Chris performs a tech roll to the side. Both Chris and Earon run towards each other. Chris strikes Earon with the Yurikenachi, a spinning back fist. Earon attempts to counter. But Chris strikes again with an Ushiro Jerry back kick to Earon's stomach. This stuns Earon momentarily. Chris advances but is met with a front kick to the face after Earon played possum, as Chris did earlier. He was able to counter, but that back kick hurt him, commented Gabriel. Earon attempts to gather wind energy. Chris quickly pressures Earon towards the outer edge of the crater. Chris attacks Earon with a triple punch combo, known as the Sanbanzuki, a rising punch, followed by a reverse punch, and completed with a straight punch, knocking Earon down to the ground. With Earon down, Chris gathers dark elemental energy. A purple flame surrounds his hand and he forms for a hammer fist strike aided by darkness energy. Before Chris could execute the blow, the fighting ring's barrier deactivates. A white towel falls into the crater. Chris looks around. Who threw in the towel? Chris questioned. I did. This fight is over, answered Shigo. Shigo appears in front of Chris. The island servants help Earon out of the crater in the fighting ring. Winner of the main event, Chris of the normal universe, Shigo announced as he raised Chris's arm in victory. Anna, Duran, Brandy, Tanya, and Gabriel enter the crater in the fighting ring. The crowd in attendance give the invited six a standing ovation. Forgive me, but we can no longer entertain you. We will head back to the palace. You remain guests of honor until your stay in this universe ends. You will not have to fear any violence from anyone on this island, said Shigo as he exited the crater. The crowd of spectators as well as the Elemental Masters exit the arena. They're gone, said Brandy. So what now? Anna speculated. I say we finish this now. Let's go to that palace and beat all of them at once, suggested Gabriel. We can't do that. We wouldn't be able to take on every inhabitant of this island, Tanya lectured. Darren and Iria appear. Congratulations on passing your first test in the universal struggle, greeted Darren. Gabriel stepped forward. A test? You call this a test? Asked Gabriel. Daniel and Angela could have been killed. If Chris didn't step in, 4 people would have died in 2 days, Tanya added. And all 4 of them would have made their fates by their own hand, replied Iria. We warned you that any decision made could mean life or death. The 6 of you carried yourselves well, considering the circumstances, Darren continued. What about the masters? With all of these trained elementals here, shutting down this operation that they are running will be almost impossible, remarked Brandy. Iria smiled. We never intended for you all to come here and end their society, Iria informed. We know how their culture works. We knew that if we trained any fighters, Earon would want to challenge them, continues Darren. Why? Outside of this arena they showed no hostility towards us, Anna pointed out. Call me crazy, but I think that I know why that was, speculated Duran. Brandy giggles. Everyone awaited Duran's theory. This island is a recruiting tool, and this arena is the proving ground, Duran said as he looked around. Exactly, Earon and Shigo have been inviting those with elemental abilities here for years now, started Iria. As you already know, they have also been traveling to the normal universe and bringing potential recruits here, Darren went on. Euro mentioned that. Why are people from the normal universe able to learn elemental abilities faster? Inquired Anna. It's due to universal balance, Iria started. Elemental abilities are commonplace here, but not in your universe, added Darren. The inhabitants of the Andiron Universe take their abilities for granted because many are born with them, Iria lectured. Here those who possess elemental abilities see it as a right. Humans from your world see them as a privilege because abilities will not work there. They are make-believe to the common population, finished Earon. The normal universe's inhabitants' curiosity and desire to be more than just normal human beings. Increase your ability to learn and control the elements at a rapid rate. Elementals in this universe must first learn to control their abilities, which can take years or may never happen, making them even more dangerous, Iria informed. Your business here is done, but before we return you to the normal universe, we would like to clear the air about anything more you are wondering, Darren said as he looked at the invited 6. Will the masters be an immediate threat to the universes? Asked Gabriel. Not yet. The EPC has superior numbers and worldwide funding. It will take years for them to stand up to that, Darren responded. Chris stepped forward. Who is Mark Oxford? Inquired Chris. Wait, I've heard that name before. He is the CEO of God Tech. He is one of the richest men in the world, Tanya cut in. What does he have to do with the universal struggle? Wondered Anna. Shigo told me to remember his name, Chris continued. And you should. He has been performing experiments for years trying to prove the existence of an alternate universe, lectured Iria. He has gotten close. He claims to have been to this alternate universe, and his description of it was spot on with the Andiron Universe, Darren continued. He believes that humans can possess extraordinary abilities, and the only way that can be possible is by harnessing an energy source from this alleged alternate universe, Iria finished. So he is in the normal universe, responded Chris. Yes, in the United Kingdom, but his alternate exists in the Andiron Universe as well, Iria revealed. About 15 years ago, something really strange happened, started Darren. Both versions of Mark Oxford's life became almost identical. It was not that way before. Alternate Mark Oxford was homeless and jobless. He was literally the opposite of his normal self. Iria continued. Well, based on my experience, some of the alternates that I saw were the same as their normal counterparts. I see no cause for concern, replied Chris. Physically, they are mostly the same, inside of them different people. Universally, the odds of two alternates living nearly identical lives are slim to none, boomed Darren. That does sound suspicious, Brandy chimed in. And with his money and influence as well as his company's knowledge of science and technology, he could make a breakthrough. We cannot let him make any contact with the Andiron Universe, Iria said in a serious tone. There is more to this that we do not have time to tell you now, but we will during your vacation, continued Darren. Vacation? Asked Chris. You earned it. This time you will be more educated about your future foe. In addition, we will provide medical care for Daniel and Angela, Iria answered. The original 8 disappear in a blinding light. The Elemental Masters Saga has concluded. Chris, Duran, Anna, Brandy, Tanya, and Gabriel travel to the Andiron Universe in order to meet the Elemental Masters who invited them to Earon's island. Upon arriving, they discover that Daniel and Angela followed them. The original 8 entered Earon's palace as guests of honor. At a grand breakfast, they meet the Elemental Masters in person for the first time. Earon informs them that there will be a showcase of elemental abilities in the arena built for such events. During the showcase, the Masters intentionally taunt their normal universe guests. This draws the ire of Chris, who promptly challenges the Masters. Earon accepts since this was a part of his plan. He suggests a series of fights. The fights are governed by rules determined by Earon himself, including that fights can be to the death if both fighters do not forfeit on their own. Following Brandy's close victory over a slightly more skilled Switchfire, Earon and Shigo compile a fight card for the next day, while Brandy finds a way to avoid a fight to the death by knocking her opponent out. Gabriel was not so lucky. Gabriel dominates Geishi and numerous times offers to let Geishi walk away. Geishi refuses, and Shigo declares it a fight to the death. Gabriel kills Geishi with his superior technique, the electric driller. Gabriel walks out of the fighting ring the first victor of the second day in the Andiron Universe. Anna is pitted against Euro in a fight between Masters of Wind. The two are evenly matched. Euro and Anna agree to use their superior techniques in an attempt to end the fight. Euro uses his superior technique, Cause Hurricane. As the hurricane moved towards Anna, she flies into the eye of the hurricane. Using her superior technique, Blowout. The force of Anna's wind energy sends Euro flying into the fighting ring's barrier, injuring him. Euro becomes the first master to concede voluntarily, making Anna the winner. In the next fight, Tanya goes one-on-one with Jing. The two start off evenly matched in the physical technique area. After trading barbs, Jing performs her superior technique, Hard Body. The technique covers Jing's entire body with a coat of metal armor. Tanya attempts multiple times to break through Jing's armor, but she is unsuccessful. After both fighters refuse to concede, the fight becomes to the death. Jing is so confident that Tanya cannot penetrate her armor. She allows Tanya to either defeat her with one technique or be killed. Tanya attacks with her superior technique, Metal Palm Strike. It appears that Jing is unaffected, but she falls to the ground and pronounced dead by the doctor. Tanya is declared the winner. Shigo announces a tag team battle next. Chris and Duran versus Q and Dan. He reveals that Q requested that Dan fight with him. Earon agrees but enforces rules that are slightly different than the rules of the previous fights. Duran and Dan face off first and are evenly matched. When their partners are allowed to enter, Q and Dan move quickly to isolate Chris. After their partners are returned to the tag barrier, Duran and Dan agree to tag them in to do battle legally. Q takes a slight advantage but Chris evens the odds with his physical techniques. Q and Dan once again attempt to double-team Chris. He is saved by Duran and the two rally together. Q and Dan declare that they will end this fight with their superior technique or forfeit. The team of Elemental Masters combine their superior techniques, Wood Blast and Kokoro Wave. They direct their attack towards Chris. Duran uses his chakra clone, distracting Dan. Chris and Duran turn the tables by using their elemental energy to suddenly appear within attacking range of their foes. Duran knocks Q out of the fighting ring with his superior technique, Mana Blast. Chris surprises Dan with his superior technique, Dark Fist, knocking Dan out cold. Q concedes for his team. Chris and Duran win the last preliminary fight. Shigo meets with Earon to determine who will fight in the main event the next day. Earon has not decided yet and allows Shigo to challenge Chris in the fighting ring, under the condition that it will not be an official fight on the card. Shigo agrees and returns to the fighting ring. He invites Chris to join him inside of the fighting ring. Once Chris steps into the fighting ring, the barrier activates, making the fighting ring pitch dark. Anna and the others express that they cannot see or hear what is going on in the fighting ring. Inside of Earon's suite, he brags that only users of Darkness Element can see and hear through the barrier. Shigo tells Chris that he made a modification to the barrier of the fighting ring to test his darkness ability, after revealing that he knew Chris's father. Shigo taunts Chris with techniques that he learned from Chris's father. He says that Chris is no match for him yet and reveals that he did not intend to fight him in a real fight. Shigo informs Chris that a more serious threat resides in the normal universe. After Chris mentions his father again, Shigo has the barrier lowered and leaves the fighting ring. Earon meets with Shigo shortly after this. Shigo announces that Earon will face Chris in the main event the next day. The remaining Elemental Masters have a meeting where Switchfire decides to quit the collective. On the morning of the original 8's final day allowed in the Andiron Universe, Chris and Tanya are up early and run into each other. The two discuss the Andiron Universe. Tanya gives Chris her vote of confidence for his upcoming fight. Upon arriving at the arena, the original 8 see Shigo training island servants. Before Shigo can get the fight underway, Angela and Daniel storm into the fighting ring, demanding an opponent to fight. Earon enters the fighting ring. He proceeds to wipe the floor with Daniel and Angela while utilizing various elemental techniques. Before Earon is able to further wound them, Chris steps into the fighting ring. Tanya and Gabriel assist Daniel and Angela and get them away from the fighting ring. The rules of the fight are slightly modified, with the change being that a fighter's ally can throw in the towel on their behalf, ending the fight. Earon of course starts off with the advantage, because he has multiple elements at his disposal. Chris turns the battle into more of a fight instead of an elemental technique fest. Chris dominates this part of the fight with his physical technique. And when Chris moves to finish the fight, Shigo throws in the towel for Earon, declaring Chris the winner of the main event. The remaining Elemental Masters make a hasty exit from the arena. Darren and Iria arrive to congratulate the entire team. They are open to answering any more questions that Chris and the others may have before moving forward. Iria informs them that the Elemental Masters will not be an immediate threat to the universes. Chris inquires about the identity of Mark Oxford. He is told that Mark Oxford is attempting to prove that another universe exists. Oxford also believes that humans are capable of possessing abilities beyond what the everyday humans know of currently. If you have been paying attention, his hypothesis sounds eerily similar to the makeup of the Andiron Universe. Who is Mark Oxford? And what has he done to prove his beliefs? How did GodTech rise so quickly to become one of the most profitable companies in both universes? Why is GodTech a potential threat to the universes? The universal struggle is now in full swing and soon the stakes will be raised. This time a lot closer to home. All of the new questions posed will be answered in the next saga of Chaotic Universe. End of Chapter 12. End of the Elemental Masters Saga.